It has operations in more than 56 countries, 80,000 employees worldwide. Thales Group is a French multinational company that designs and builds electrical systems and provides services for the aerospace, defense, transportation, and security markets. Its philosophical mission, though, in a more general sense, is that it is building a future we can all trust. Today, we'll be talking about how it envisions to pursue this mission through aeronautics and unmanned flight specifically. My name is Paul Krawatski. I'm formerly a lead anchor for CTV News here in Canada, for those who live outside of Canada, now head of comms and marketing for autism and neurodiversity advocacy group, Giant Steps. And I'm very excited to be joined right now by Yannick Assouad. Ms. Assouad has a long and impressive history in the field of aeronautics. In 2010, she was appointed Chief Executive Officer of Zodiac's Aircraft Systems segment. During this time, she also oversaw the acquisition of in-flight entertainment business IMS in California. In 2015, she became Chief Executive Officer of Zodiac Cabin. In November 2016, she became Chief Executive Officer of Latécoère. I hope I said that right. And in 2020, she was appointed the Executive Vice President of Aeronautics for Thales. So, Ms. Assouad, thank you very much for joining us today and joining us all today.
Thank you for having me.
We were talking about before, as I mentioned, I just wanted to start off with kind of an interesting question, because we are talking about the future, right? Thales' mission statement is to build a future we can all trust, as I mentioned. We'll, of course, get into the specifics of that shortly. But an interesting point I kind of wanted to start with, kind of bring everybody in. It links to this period, this pandemic period we've all lived through. COVID has demonstrated quite poignantly that humanity, can adapt at a drop of the dime if need be. And if we can argue, and it's difficult to make this argument, that if we can argue that one positive thing is reflected is that we as a global community, right, can develop quite quickly given the right motivation. So first question, if you choose to answer it, how does that demonstrated capability to be able to evolve quickly link, do you think, to Thales' mission and vision? Does it highlight a more encouraging potential for humanity, maybe?
Certainly. Clearly, we've proven that we can adapt, although we can all recognize that it was not fun, I think. But we've adapted. We have adapted working every day in a different manner, more virtually, although I must say myself, I'm lacking the human interaction and meeting people. And since I've changed job in that period, I can tell you, having an organization that is deployed worldwide, it has not been easy to manage that worldwide organization while not being able to travel. But indeed, we've adapted very fast. Finally, our IT and IS system showed more resilience than we would have thought if we were asked the question a year and a half ago, clearly. So finally, the system works. You still have a question like, do you hear me or do you see me? But I think globally we can say that we made it work. Nonetheless, if I'm talking about the aeronautics, clearly it's been a big hit. And as we did in our way of working, we probably also need to change the way we fly as well. And clearly that crisis is triggering much of the way we did with our way of working, is changing and accelerating actually the development of new technology for our aerospace domain.
You mentioned there, it's pretty interesting, we have to change the way we fly. What does that mean? How does the way we fly have to change?
I think there's two components to it, I think. One is this COVID crisis has been very much linked in terms of causes to the global warming trend And whether right or wrong, by the way, I'm not an expert in medicine, but clearly there has been a lot of speeches about that. But I think those speeches brought a global trend of, do we take good care of our planet? It had started prior to the COVID crisis. Again, like you said, it's more an accelerator than really a creator of trend, but it did accelerate the trend that we need to take better care of our planet. And although global aviation is only responsible for 2 to 3% of the CO2 emission, clearly aviation had started a trend to decarbonize itself, and we see an acceleration of that. So that's one big trend that I feel will continue. The second trend we see, people have more and more difficulty to take global public transportation. And there is a trend of being less numerous in a given way of transportation, and that applies to plane as well. And probably we will go also for mobility to probably less big planes in a way, or more individual travel. And the two trends, which may seem in conflict because they don't go well together, with technology, I think can evolve both and grow and continue to grow clearly, and that growth will be accelerating. That's for sure.
Yeah, you're framing, very major concerns that affect everyone in the world, and those major concerns, of course, tie pretty directly into a lot of things Thales is doing right now. So maybe it's an opportune moment, for those who don't know, how then is Thales breaking ground specifically in regards to air traffic management, which is what we're focusing on here today, and it's linked to sustainability and the environment.
So clearly, there is two speeds to decarbonizing the commercial aviation. One, which is midterm, long-term, that will be to eliminate altogether the current fuel and change it to a more friendly fuel, which is likely to be hydrogen. But we are talking 10, 15 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, if we are talking about bigger airplane. In parallel, we can optimize the route of the planes so that we gain immediately CO2 and use more interactively a lot of parameters that are not used today in real time to optimize the flights, the commercial flights, individual flights. So there's a lot we can do today to improve that with an application that will come just a few years from now, not 10 years, not a decade or 2 decades from now, but some years from now. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is, of course, changing the fuel and having some biofuel or sustainable aviation fuel, which we call SAF, which is the acronym of Sustainable Aviation Fuel, that we need to develop while not taking the soils that are needed for food, to grow food, because clearly that would become also unacceptable for the public. But there's many ways of producing a sustainable aviation fuel using used oil, using, and I'm talking vegetable oils there, biomass. There is really a lot of ways of creating sustainable aviation food. So this is today. We need to work on it today to start gaining, while continuing the trend that the aviation has started actually 40, 50 years ago. Every generation of plane, we gain between 20 and 30% of fuel burn between lightening the airplane using new material like the carbon composite, which was a great addition to make structure of the plane and to lighten the structure of the plane, but also improving, of course, the efficiency of the engines. So altogether, that road to more sustainability for aviation has started a long time ago. It will continue, but this crisis is probably an accelerator. First thing, sustainable aviation fuel plus optimizing the route, and Thales here is key because we are mastering both the ground segment of the air traffic management and the airborne segment, which is in the airplane that we call avionics in an airplane. Today, those two systems don't speak together. They speak through the voice of the pilot and the voice of the controller. Tomorrow, and that could be relatively short term, they can speak while taking into account in a cyber-secured way all the weather parameters, for example, that can change the trajectory of an airplane to use, for example, favorable winds to save fuel. So all of these interaction between the system, which is not present today in aviation, can really be explored to make aviation more sustainable.
That's really interesting, and it's something Thales is heavily implicated in. And as you mentioned, interesting in the sense that this is something that could be tackled right now, which is very key. Lower altitude flight. I know this is something that's fairly key as well. How does that reduce emissions?
Because low altitude flight will be for smaller airplanes that can be electrical airplane, and you've seen a lot of projects in big companies like Airbus, like Bell, in the US, so and smaller startup companies as well, or more established, by the way, automotive company that have projects of electrical aircraft, mobility airplane. So there's many projects, and they are based on electric propulsion, and that's clearly is a zero emission vehicle. Nonetheless, clearly we are not there because for this to become reality, and I truly believe it will become reality, but for this to become reality, you need to manage the sky at low altitude, and the ATM today is not able to do that. So that's why we are creating what we call UTM, an unmanned traffic management. Why unmanned traffic management? Because all of this will start by managing drones, unmanned vehicles, prior to managing a vehicle in which the public can fly. So really, the drones and how we are going to manage the airspace of the drone is a key element we need to go through and to manage before being able to imagine a future when you won't have thousands but millions of flying vehicles, low altitude. But for that to happen, the public that is walking in the street need to trust that the vehicles that are flying up there are not going to fall on their head. and that trust will come through a connection between the vehicle and what we call the UTM, which is right now created to manage the drone.
I'm gonna reduce this conversation to a very tired analogy right now because I'm much dumber than you, clearly. but yeah, you know, it's the technology has existed for a long time. You know, the whole flying car analogy, the crowded urban airspace. But you're touching upon the stuff that surrounds it, right? That's so complex and that is so key to building trust among the public to actually get that to happen. So it's just very exciting to me that a company like Thales is actually working on something like that. You know, from a layman's perspective, maybe we could expand on that. Like, what does the future of unmanned aviation look like?
So it looks like a vehicle that first will be recognized by the system. It cannot be any vehicle. It's a vehicle that is fitted with a device which will give it an ID, like a plane has a register number. You are not flight nothing, you are flight XXX. Like that, the drone needs first to be identified and recognized by the UTM. And by the way, we are doing that with our division, which came from the acquisition of Gemalto, which is a specialist of identification, as you know, and we are using their technology that we fit in the system on board the flying vehicle to do that. So that's one. Second, that vehicle has a purpose. For example, it's going to examine the health of a building. To do that, it needs to have a given trajectory, and the avionics system that will be embedded on board will know that trajectory. It will be loaded wirelessly, of course. It will be loaded into the trajectory into the vehicle. That's what we call geocaching, meaning the vehicle cannot go outside a certain airspace that is predetermined and that is also filed within the UTM. So the UTM authorizes it because it knows that another vehicle is not going to interfere with that trajectory. And then it needs to have, because all system fails, and especially, you know, when it's unmanned, the redundancy won't be the one we have on manned vehicle, because otherwise it would become very, very expensive and probably economically not viable. But system can fail, and if it fails, it needs to have a system that is going to fail safe, meaning that is going to crash or stop or land the system at a given predetermined position. So all of this needs to be demonstrated first on a given example in cities, in remote areas, etc. And it needs to be demonstrated as well at scale, meaning not one vehicle flying, but is a full system which comprises hundreds, thousands, millions of drones, so that we develop a system that is completely safe and prove itself to be able to manage a lot of vehicles flying in the air. So that's what we are developing right now. This is now. This is not the future. This is now.
It's mind-blowing. And that line, you know, this is not the future, this is now.
Yes.
It sort of just sent chills down my spine because it's incredibly exciting. It does occur to me, though, that you know, the system itself is just mind-blowingly complex, but it also requires a certain degree of collaborations, corporate partnerships, governmental interventions, that level of you know, cohesiveness that is needed to make this happen. Where are we now as far as that's concerned?
you're absolutely right to say first that it needs a lot of collaboration. It needs collaboration between the drone makers themselves, the system maker, and Thales clearly is working on that part of the system, both the UTM and the onboard system that communicate one with each other, one with the other. So clearly this is our domain of skill, and this is where we want to be in the system. And then it needs to be operated by an authority. And right now we have authorities around the world. They are more or less flexible, more or less willing to make experiment because clearly safety is at stake. But we are in active talks, both with the FAA and the EASA as Thales, because it will need also probably specific certification. You know that in aviation, we have several types of certification: general aviation certification, commercial aviation certification that are more or less stringent. You have certification for the ATM, of course, so that every system demonstrates a high level of integrity and a high level of safety. And clearly, this UTM drone system will probably first need a specific set of standards so it can be certified to given standard. And this is being right now discussed with the authority. Will be developing along with the development and on the side of the development of this system. So those discussions are active right now with many authorities, mainly EASA and FAA, because they are in the driver's seat when it comes to certification. But we've made trial, for example, in Singapore, where the CAAS, which is the equivalent of the FAA for Singapore, has been very open to make experiment on a given limited airspace of Singapore, where we've tested a drone for building health monitoring in Singapore. And those experiments worked, I must say, very well in a city environment where the interference with the buildings, with the waves, etc., is very dense. I mean, there's a lot of emission in a city like Singapore. So it's not like looking at a gas pipe in very remote area. It's a very dense environment. And I must say, we never lost a drone. It tracked very well, and it was a great experiment in a very constrained airspace. So it was a great experiment. So this is progressing. I'm not telling you that it's in 2021 that we'll have a broad set of certification to which we can expose our system. But I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll get there.
That's good to hear that the experiment and that the experience in Singapore was positive and that you didn't lose a drone. Obviously, you brought the word safety numerous times there. It's a concern for any everyday person thinking about unmanned aviation. So I guess maybe we could expand on that. What are some of the practical safety concerns you're dealing with, and what should everyday people know about the precautions you're taking and what form any safety structure might take in the future?
First, I don't think the general public is very well aware even of what it takes to make commercial aviation flight safe, actually. They see very little, the general public see very, very, very little of what the industry does and has done to secure the flight. Today, there are let's say pre-COVID, there were thousands of flights at the same instant in the air and with at the end almost no accident, and clearly that did not come just for free. It came with a lot of system analysis, a lot of redundancy analysis, and systems that are really designed to fly safely. So the general public doesn't know what's behind safety in an airplane usually. It will be really the same type of system that will be used on drone, although probably, as I said, much less redundant, because in a commercial airplane, you have a lot of redundancy that avoid, if a system fail, that the general system fail at the same time, and with usually no common point of failures and analysis on that type of thing. We will do exactly the same on drone, and this is the way of making it safe. I would say the subtlety there is that the UTM will be key for that safety. This is really what does not exist today, that will be native with the drone. That is that link, constant link and automatic link between the drone and the UTM, which does not exist today between the ATM and the avionics of a commercial airplane. And therefore, it will not rely on man at all to make it safe. So that's really where the difference is and where we need to experiment. Because when you are saying link, you are saying connection, and you are saying cyber risk. And there, it's all the cybersecurity expertise and skill of Thales that we put in place to secure that connection between the UTM and the drone that does not exist today as such between a commercial airplane and the ATM.
It occurs to me that you've had a long career in aviation and in aeronautics. How does it feel to have your thumb on all of this and all this development and such an exciting future that everybody is really anticipating and excited about? How does it feel to be directly implicated in that personally?
To me, it's aviation is my passion. I am a pilot. I own an airplane. To me, it's just life. So clearly, I have seen in 33 years now of career in aviation, I have seen the plane evolve quite a lot, I must say, and it's vibrant. It's so interesting to be part of it and to drive it and to develop those ideas. Probably not ready yet to stop to do it. So yes, you feel that you do something for the people, because I'm a true believer that we need to meet people. We need to meet people. This is the price of peace, I think. And therefore we need aviation. It's clearly a world need to have aviation, and I'm proud and passionate about it.
This is the price of peace. It's a good way to end it. Listen, again, I think I use this word numerous times. It's mind-blowing. It's just so fascinating. Thank you so much for talking to us all about it today. Executive Vice President of Aeronautics for Thales, Yannick Assouad. Thank you very much.
Thank you.